Hey, everybody. So I am Matt Young. I am here to conduct my third interview for organizational behavior. At this time, I would like to introduce my guest, and I'll go ahead and kick it over to him once I introduce him and let him say a couple of things about himself. So I am here with Adam Roth. If you'd like to take a moment and tell us about yourself and kind of what your current role is and the organization that you're with.
Sure. I'm Adam Roth. I'm 45. I grew up in Cincinnati. I started in the military and ended up doing 21 years National Guard. Concurrently, I applied about the age of 27, 28, and applied for my current position here at Westchester Township as a police officer. So I've been in that role for about 17, 18 years. And I'm currently assigned to the K-9 section as the senior K-9 handler for the township.
Okay. Um, so, based on your experience with the military, the National Guard, the police department, and as the senior canine handler, and your vast experience within the police department, um, sounds like you would probably fall into that leadership category. Others look to you for guidance, mentorship. Would you say that's probably accurate?
Yeah, I'm the senior guy on our squad of 12. The second senior guy on nights, the next senior guy has, I think, 6 years. So I've got like 12 years on the next senior guy to me.
Wow.
Most of the guys with the same longevity are, moved in different assignments as sergeants and lieutenants and that type of role.
Okay. So, from kind of a leadership standpoint, and while these younger officers are looking to you, what principles or values would you say guide your decision making when you're functioning in that role as a leader and guiding them?
So I guess a couple things. You've got to have the experience to draw off of because there's in the police world, there's not a cookie cutter answer to all the things you encounter. So you need the experience to draw from, and then you also know the knowledge. You're kind of on an island a lot of times as a police officer. You make decisions independent of supervisors, so you inherently have to have some of that mentality of being able to make a decision quickly with the right knowledge and right foundation, supported by policies, case law, legal restrictions, and what's good for the typical situation as well. Um, so the principles and values that uh, are important in that role are kind of just understanding people come from different environments and applying those to the situation you're in to come up with the best answer. Not be a perfect one, but you got to come up with the best one with what you have.
Sure. Okay. Um, so, how would you describe what your leadership style is? Maybe um, you, you spoke about being in the military, what kind of leadership style you had there, maybe how it evolved as you progressed through the ranks, and then maybe bounce that off kind of your leadership as a senior patrol officer at the police department.
So the military does a great job of developing leaders. They kind of start you off, at a foundational level with just the knowledge you need to fulfill that role. And as you expand, your immediate peers are typically one or two levels higher than you and kind of share their knowledge and kind of guide you as you go up in the ranks and experience in that role. So you kind of always shadowing someone directly that has the same kind of role that you do. Uh, some of that stuff applies to the police. You still have other guys you kind of mentor you and you follow along. Um, but the leadership style I've kind of adopted is, I kind of try and listen first and see what's going on. When I have to make a decision, you make a decision, but you're also not that you're the ironclad ruler that rules with a heavy hand, but you have to understand that your idea might change, and you have to be okay with that, and you have to incorporate feedback from others, kind of evaluate it as you go and go from there. So it's kind of a fluid leadership role. It's not something that's dictated and you have to follow to a dictated script.
Sure. So you have these kind of outside influences that as you're in a situation may cause your decision to evolve. So you're listening to your surrounding inputs to change or adapt what your decision has been or what your actions are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, so let's use the example, maybe the canine handlers as the senior canine handler, or perhaps the squad that you work with on a typical basis. And as your role as that unofficial team leader, official team leader, how would you motivate your team, especially during challenging times where morale might be low? I'm sure there's plenty of those opportunities within law enforcement, just whether it's short staffed or whether it's inclement weather or the time of the shift is not really conducive to being in a good mood, we'll say. uh, so how would you say that you motivate the team to kind of continue on and work towards those objectives that the organization has set?
I mean, you have to understand what the other guys are going through. Understand, what possibly you don't really know what kind of day they had prior to them clocking in and starting the shift.
Sure.
They have outside things going on. We've got a lot of kids that have growing families, aging parents at this time. You know, family stresses and all that stuff. So you kind of got to start with that mindset before you even start your shift, and then as you go along, you kind of have to um, understand that there are certain things that you can't change, and they are what they are, and they're going to suck. And you have to acknowledge that to guys and just say, "Hey, look, I don't necessarily want to be here either,
Sure.
but here we are. Let's make the most of it. There's nothing we can change. This is something we can change. Hey, let's get together for dinner. I'll bring in dinner. Let's do that.
Yeah.
We'll take that off you." So you kind of embrace the suck, so to speak, and then
Yeah.
and kind of make the best of the things that you can change and kind of change the outlook, and hopefully they feed in. And a lot of times they do. They just want someone else to kind of take the lead and be like, yeah, it sucks. I understand that, but here we are. Nothing we can do about it. So let's go on the day and make the most of it.
So I just want to go off on that a little bit. You mentioned something that uh, improved morale, in your opinion, which was it was like a social bonding event, either bringing in a team dinner or dinner together, during the shift, off days, whatever. Is that something that you found helps to build cohesion within your team?
I think it's very important because if you just see these guys that someone else that backs you up in this call and anything else, and you don't get a chance to kind of step outside of that role, even if it's still within the confines of work and that environment, if you can't look at them as someone other than a coworker and a person with these issues, these families, and these things going on, or this background, it's you're kind of missing out on an opportunity to meet and grow some relationships with these guys and gals.
Sure. Okay. Um, so this would be a good one, given the role that you're in. How do you handle conflicts within the team? And I guess we'll expand that question to not even within your team, perhaps the people that you're dealing with in your line of work, um, and then try to ensure that the conflicts are resolved and they're resolved in a constructive manner that causes it to not linger and have people ruminate on it.
So I kind of like to see senior guys step up and kind of resolve small stuff that they can and handle things. I think there's been some generational changes where uh, people feel like this is the boss should be able to change this, make this better. And sometimes, it doesn't need to go to the level of the boss, and you need to kind of resolve things at the lowest level and let the bosses deal with bigger issues that are outside of your realm of control. And then the other kind of position you're in as low level management or the medium between the higher ups and lower ups is kind of the messaging that you send and that you kind of got to bounce off from the higher ups, and then the grievances and gripes and everything else that you kind of have to push up.
Hmm.
You're at that constant conflict where you got to kind of massage this message and present it in a way that the guys can understand it and get behind it and not take it as me versus them type of attitude. And
Sure.
at the same hand too, you've got a lot of these conflicts come from kind of the misconception or sometimes conception that the people on a lower level, their voices aren't getting heard, their grievances aren't being acknowledged, their complaints are just being dismissed. So you kind of have to present that message up in a way that it's received and hopefully action is taken upon it to kind of address those things. If
Sure.
if you have three things from above and you want to convey and have one or two of them stick, I think you've done a good job. And vice versa, if you can take one or two of the things that the guys complain about and maybe make just a little bit better for them, I think that goes a long way in feeling like both parties are being heard.
Okay.
And I think people understand that nothing's going to be perfect, but if you can kind of make small changes here and there to not necessarily make things the best they can be, but a little bit better day in and day out, I think that's what people want.
Okay. Yeah. Some incremental changes. Um, all right. This will probably be our last question. I'm just looking at our time here. Um, so within your team, how do you identify and develop one of those younger officers that may have potential for leadership or show potential for growth on the team or the squad? How do you identify and help to develop them?
So starting out, I think the career of law enforcement is very challenging. There's a lot of things that come into play. You're not going to get things right for a lot of the time, the first couple of years. Um, but to see how these younger guys kind of grow from these mistakes, these challenges, these questions they have, if you get the guys that you got to say, hey, this is what you did, this is what you should have done, and this is why, and then the second time around they adapt to that and fulfill that, versus you tell the same guy, hey, this is what you can't do, and they continually
Sure.
don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys kind of distinguish themselves a little bit to that
Okay.
regard. And then the other guys that show a little bit of initiative and show up with a good attitude, those are the guys that you want to be in those leadership roles. And you see those guys kind of develop and emerge, and you reward them with positions of greater responsibility, and hopefully they thrive in that next role. And they don't, um, I guess, inherit some kind of behaviors that give them a sense of entitlement, and they maintain those same characteristics that they had at the lower level at
Yeah.
the higher level. And if they do better in that role, then I think you kind of reward them and give them greater responsibility and hopefully better leadership.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think we're right at time here for the interview, but I really appreciate your time. Thanks for taking this opportunity to talk with me and help me out with my project here. So thanks, Adam. Really
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Yep. Good luck.
Thanks.
Anytime, buddy. See
Yeah.
you.